You ever notice how some movies don't just disappoint you, they almost offend you? Like, you sit there thinking, wait, how did this get made? Big studios, massive budgets, famous names, and somehow, the final result feels hollow, awkward, or just painfully wrong. The 2020s were supposed to be cinema's comeback era. Instead, they quietly gave us a streak of films that looked expensive, but felt unfinished, soulless, or wildly out of touch. And the strangest part? Some of these weren't small failures. They were pushed hard, marketed everywhere, hyped like events, until audiences actually watched them. So let's rewind the decade a bit and start unpacking the movies that didn't just miss the mark. They made people wonder how the mark was missed this badly. 20 Pinocchio. Disney went all in on live-action remakes, and Pinocchio was supposed to be a prestige win. Instead, it landed with a dull thud. Despite a strong cast and massive resources, the film feels oddly lifeless. The visuals are flat, the color grading drains warmth from every scene, and the emotional core that made the original timeless is missing. Nothing feels magical, just manufactured. To make matters worse, it arrived the same year as a far superior reimagining, making the flaws impossible to ignore. Rather than honoring a classic, this version became a cautionary tale about mistaking nostalgia for creativity. 19. Snow White. This one collapsed under the weight of controversy and poor execution. Even if you ignore the debates surrounding it, the film itself simply doesn't work. The CGI feels uncanny, the musical numbers lack energy, and the story has been scrubbed so clean it loses all tension. Fairy tales need danger, wonder, and emotion. This has none of it. With a budget approaching the absurd and box office returns falling short, Snow White proved that removing risk doesn't make a story safer. It makes it forgettable. 18. Home Sweet Home Alone. Some franchises should stay in the past, and this movie explains why. Home Sweet Home Alone tries to coast on name recognition while stripping away everything that made the originals charming. The kid isn't clever, he's annoying. The burglars are weirdly more sympathetic, and the iconic traps barely exist until far too late. It doesn't feel chaotic, clever, or heartwarming, just hollow. The whole thing plays like a corporate checkbox exercise, reminding viewers that nostalgia can't save a movie when the soul is missing. 17. Joker. Folie à deux. Turning a gritty psychological character study into a musical was a bold move, and not the good kind. The sequel abandons the raw tension and social commentary that made the first film resonate. Musical numbers drain momentum instead of adding depth, and the character arc actively dismantles what audiences connected with. Rather than feeling subversive or daring, it comes off as confused and self-indulgent. It's the kind of film that mistakes shock value for intelligence, leaving viewers wondering why it existed at all. 16. After We Fell. By this point, the franchise feels like it's running on fumes. After We Fell barely pretends to care about storytelling, opting instead for recycled drama and shallow emotional beats. The plot is thin, the tone wildly melodramatic, and the direction sloppy. It can't decide whether it wants to be a romance, a soap opera, or pure fantasy, and ends up being none of them. While the fanbase stayed loyal, critics saw it for what it was. A franchise going through the motions, hoping passion alone would hide the lack of substance. Joker 15. Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate. Fans waited years for a follow-up, and this is what they got. The movie looks cheap, feels rushed, and barely resembles the spirit of the original. The absence of the original lead voice is painfully obvious, with the replacement sounding more like an impression than a character. Instead of a proper sequel, it plays like a low-budget TV pilot stretched into a feature. The humor rarely lands, the animation lacks polish, and the whole thing screams minimal effort. What should have been a triumphant return turned into a reminder that not every cult favorite needs reviving. 14. Dolittle. This movie didn't just stumble, it wiped out years of audience goodwill in one shot. With a massive budget and a stacked voice cast, Dolittle should have been charming, adventurous, and heartfelt. Instead, it feels loud, childish, and strangely empty. The humor relies heavily on crude jokes that wear thin almost immediately, while the story wanders without urgency or emotional pull. Visually, the film keeps throwing spectacle at the screen, but that only makes the lack of substance more obvious. There's no real momentum, no memorable character moments, and no sense of wonder holding it together. The failure wasn't just critical, it hit financially too, forcing its lead into a serious career reset. Dolittle stands as a perfect example of what happens when money replaces vision. Lots of noise, very little meaning. 13. Bride Hard. On paper, blending a wedding comedy with action movie chaos sounds like a guaranteed crowd pleaser. In reality, Bride Hard can't decide what it wants to be, and that indecision sinks it. The film jerks back and forth between slapstick humor and gunfire-heavy action without ever finding a rhythm. Despite a talented cast, the script gives them nothing consistent to work with. Jokes fall flat, action scenes feel oddly weightless, and emotional beats are rushed or misplaced. Instead of escalating into something outrageous or clever, everything feels stitched together from mismatched ideas. The tonal whiplash is exhausting rather than fun. By the time it ends, there's no lasting impression, just the sense that a decent concept was buried under confusion. It's not offensive, just forgettable, which might be worse. 12. Rebel Moon, Part 2, The Scargiver. This sequel was supposed to steady the ship. Instead, it quietly sank the entire franchise. The Scargiver is overlong, uneven, and packed with ideas that never fully come together. Scenes stretch on far past their usefulness, building toward payoffs that never arrive. The film wants to feel epic, but the emotional weight never matches the scale it's chasing. Violence, mythology, and thematic messaging clash instead of reinforcing each other, creating a strange sense of tonal confusion. For viewers not already devoted to the director's style, the experience feels like endurance rather than entertainment. What should have expanded the universe only made it feel more bloated and inaccessible. Rather than igniting excitement for what comes next, The Scargiver did the opposite. It made the future feel unnecessary. 11. Jeepers Creepers, Reborn. Reboots are risky, but this one barely feels finished. Jeepers Creepers. Reborn looks less like a studio release and more like a student project with a franchise logo slapped on top. The visuals are cheap, the acting is stiff, and the scares are almost non-existent. Instead of building tension, it unintentionally invites laughter. Worst of all, it doesn't even work as ironic fun. It's dull, awkward, and strangely lifeless, leaving fans of the original wondering why this ever escaped development hell. 10. Artemis Fowl. On paper, this should have worked. A beloved young adult novel, a big studio, and an experienced director. Somehow, Artemis Fowl turned all that into a glossy mess. The story is rushed, over-explained, and stripped of the cleverness that made the book special. Characters feel flat, emotional beats never land, and the heavy CGI only highlights how little substance is underneath. Instead of launching a franchise, the film felt like a feature-length trailer for something better that never came. For fans, it wasn't just disappointing, it felt careless. For 9. The Electric State. With an enormous budget and recognizable stars, expectations were high. What audiences got instead was something that felt more like content than cinema. The Electric State is bloated, slow, and emotionally distant, despite its massive scale. The visuals are impressive, but they never connect to a compelling story. Scenes drag, characters lack depth, and the film struggles to justify its runtime. For a project this expensive, the biggest shock is how little impact it leaves behind. Big, loud, and empty, a familiar problem in modern blockbusters. 8. Marmaduke. No one was asking for this revival, and the final product makes that painfully clear. The animation is unsettling, the humor relies on tired potty jokes, and the story is so predictable it feels insulting. Even younger viewers can see every plot beat coming from a mile away. Instead of charming, it's awkward. Instead of funny, it's grating. Marmaduke doesn't just fail to update the franchise, it actively reminds audiences why some concepts belong in the past. 7. 365 Days. This film knew exactly why people would click play, and put almost no effort beyond that. 365 Days borrows the surface-level appeal of erotic romance, but skips character development, logic, and emotional authenticity. The relationship dynamics were widely criticized for romanticizing toxic behavior, sparking backlash from critics and advocacy groups alike. While controversy helped boost its visibility, it couldn't hide the fact that the film itself is hollow. Style replaces substance at every turn, making it infamous rather than memorable. 6. War of the Worlds. This adaptation somehow makes an alien invasion feel boring. Instead of placing viewers inside chaos, most of the story unfolds through screens, video calls, and clunky exposition. The scale is small, the tension non-existent, and the product placement embarrassingly obvious. Even strong source material can't survive such lifeless execution. While production limitations explain some choices, they don't excuse the lack of creativity. When short-form videos shot on phones feel more cinematic, something has gone very wrong. 5. Tyler Perry's Duplicity. This movie tackles serious themes like police brutality and racial profiling, but completely fumbles the execution. The biggest issue isn't intention, it's tone. Duplicity swings wildly between heavy drama and soap opera absurdity, never settling into anything coherent. Characters behave irrationally, dialogue feels exaggerated, and the story builds toward a twist so baffling it undercuts the very message the film claims to care about. Instead of offering nuance or insight, it simplifies complex issues into shock moments. The result isn't provocative, it's confusing. By the end, viewers are left questioning not just the story, but what the movie was even trying to say. 4. Madam Web. From the moment this project was announced, confusion followed, and the final film delivers exactly that. Madam Web feels like a movie assembled from mismatched drafts. The dialogue is awkward, character motivations are unclear, and scenes unfold with unintentional comedy. Even the lead actress publicly distanced herself from the finished product, which says a lot. Instead of expanding superhero lore, the film became a meme factory. Remembered more for strange line delivery than storytelling, it's not ambitious enough to be bold, not coherent enough to be engaging, and not bad enough to be fun, just painfully misguided. 3. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This film asks a question no one needed answered: what if childhood comfort characters became slasher villains? The shock value got attention, but that's where the effort stopped. The movie is cheaply made, poorly acted, and relies entirely on novelty instead of suspense or craft. While it did make money, that success says more about curiosity than quality. Once the gimmick wears off, there's nothing left to hold on to. It's not scary, not clever, and barely coherent. A viral idea stretched into a feature-length reminder that just because you can make a movie doesn't mean you should. 2. Music. Few films in the 2020s sparked backlash this intense, and for good reason. Music was criticized long before release for its portrayal of autism, and watching it only confirmed those fears. The film uses disability as a storytelling shortcut rather than portraying it with care or authenticity. Casting choices, tone-deaf scenes, and an unwillingness to course-correct amplified the damage. Critics and advocacy groups condemned it, and audiences largely agreed. Even award recognition couldn't shield it from scrutiny. Instead of being heartfelt or inspiring, the film became a case study in how not to tell sensitive stories. 1. Morbius. Some movies fail quietly. Morbius failed loudly, and became legendary for all the wrong reasons. Confusing editing, hollow characters, and unintentionally hilarious dialogue turned what should have been a dark superhero story into accidental comedy. Even the film itself seems unsure what it's about. Audiences didn't connect, critics tore it apart, and yet, memes gave it a second life. Ironically, that online fame outshined the movie itself. Morbius wasn't just bad, it became a cultural punchline, proving that sometimes a movie's legacy has nothing to do with quality, and everything to do with how spectacularly it misses. If even one of these made you think, yep, that one hurt, go ahead and like this video, it helps more than you think. Subscribe if you enjoy honest breakdowns without the hype, and drop a comment. Which movie disappointed you the most, and why?